Hey everyone, let's talk about something that's on a lot of parents' minds these days. In a world that's just, well, it's full of conflicting messages and values, how do you raise a kid with a solid, dependable moral compass?
It really boils down to this one simple but huge question. What guides your child when you're not there? When no one is watching. That's what we're really talking about today. That internal guide, the thing that truly shapes who they become. Okay, think about it like this. When a family is getting ready to move, especially to another country, what's on that checklist? You've got all the documents, right? Passports, visas, all that official paperwork. The absolute essentials get packed up first.
And then, of course, you pack the personal stuff. Clothes for a totally new climate, maybe some treasured photos or keepsakes, basically everything you think you're going to need to start this new chapter of your life.
But here's the thing. In all that flurry of planning and packing, there's one item, one absolutely critical item that so often gets forgotten. And it's not something you can just stuff into a suitcase.
So what is it? It's that moral compass. And when it's missing, it creates this value vacuum. It's a kind of deep confusion that so many kids who grow up in these global, multicultural environments can really, really struggle with. Let's make this a little more concrete. I want to tell you about Nickel. He's 16, super confident, has traveled the world, but when he was called out for being, well, a little dishonest about something, his defense was simple. He just said, "Everyone does it. It's normal." And see, that's not just a teenager being a teenager. It's a huge red flag for something much, much bigger. Nickel's story? That is the value vacuum in a nutshell. It's that feeling of being totally adrift when you've seen a million different ways of life, a million different versions of what's normal, but you don't have that solid foundation, those internal principles to anchor you down. So you might be wondering, how does this even happen? How does this value vacuum form? Well, a lot of it can be traced back to the educational approaches we take. There are really two main paths here, and believe it or not, each one has its own potential pitfalls. All right, let's break this down. On one side, you've got these systems that are all about external rules. They're fantastic for teaching things like discipline, respect, and obedience. On the other side, you've got the inquiry-based approach, which is amazing for developing awareness, empathy, and open-mindedness. But, and this is a big but, both of them come with a hidden risk. So for the kids who come from that really structured, rule-based world, the big danger is something called rule collapse. What does that mean? It means when they go off to college or move out, and suddenly the teachers and the parents, that external authority is gone, poof, the rules can just vanish right along with them, because they were never truly their rules to begin with. Now, for kids from the inquiry-based systems, the risk is the flip side of the coin. It's moral relativism. They get so good at seeing every single side of an issue, which is a great skill, but they can end up struggling to decide on any core principles that are just non-negotiable. I mean, if everything is just a valid opinion, what do you actually stand for? So you can see the dilemma, right? Two different paths, two different potential problems. So what's the answer? How do we avoid these traps? Well, the good news is there's a really solid framework parents can use to build that internal compass. It's called the 8 moral anchors. This whole framework is designed to give kids stability in a world that is anything but stable. This isn't about giving them a giant book of rigid rules, and it's not about letting them float in a sea of endless questions either. It's about building a solid foundation of core principles they can rely on no matter where they are. Okay, so here they are. These are the 8 non-negotiable anchors that make up the core of this whole thing. Let's just walk through them. First, integrity. That's about doing the right thing even when nobody's looking. Then there's empathy, which is really feeling and understanding how your actions impact other people. Responsibility. That's all about owning your choices, the good and the bad. Self-restraint. This one's huge. It's about having freedom, but knowing where the limits are. Then you've got respect, and this is key. It's given to people without fear or worrying about hierarchy. Truthfulness means being honest even when it's way more convenient not to be. Humility, being confident but not arrogant about it. And finally, purpose, which is having a drive for something more than just stuff. These 8 things together, they create that true north on their internal compass. And this is probably the most important part of all. You can't just hand your kid this list and say, "Here, memorize these." It just doesn't work that way. These values aren't inherited. They have to be lived. You, as the parent, have to model them, talk about them, and live them out every single day. Kids are watching. They learn so much more from what we do than from what we say. So as we start to wrap this up, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean for your child's journey through life? It means we need to shift our focus. We need to move away from just temporary rules or endless, unanchored questions and focus on building something that lasts. And that something is character.
And that journey looks a little different depending on where you're starting from, right? If your child is coming from a very rule-based world, their journey is about moving from just following rules to actually living by their values. If they're from that inquiry-based background, their journey is from questioning everything to developing real, solid convictions. For all of them, the destination is the same, building that strong internal compass.
And at the end of the day, this is why all of this matters so, so much. Because growing up in a global world means your child is going to be handed an almost infinite menu of choices, opportunities, and different paths they can take. It's their values, that internal compass we've been talking about, that will decide which of those choices they actually make.
So I'll leave you with this thought. In a world that feels like it has fewer and fewer borders, what's the one thing that really lets you navigate it successfully? It's not the passport in your pocket or the resume in your hand. It's your character. In a borderless world, your character, well, that becomes the only passport that truly matters.